Some thoughts on the match.
Yeah, it was a tough match. Alex, she's a really tough opponent, especially here on grass. I think her game it's perfect here. So it was tough battle, and I'm happy that I make it through. But yeah, I think it was a good match.
She lost. Read that scoreline again because it matters. 6-4 for 6, 6-3. Jasmine Paolini through to the quarterfinals, Alex Eala out of Wimbledon, and if you only looked at the result you would think this was just another second week exit, another promising run that hit its ceiling, except that is not even remotely what happened on center court that Monday afternoon, because what happened was a 21-year-old from Quezon City walked off a tennis court having lost a tennis match and got a standing ovation that shook the stands anyway, and to understand why that image is to outlive the scoreline, we need to actually sit inside those 2 hours and 22 minutes and figure out what made a losing effort feel like the biggest story of the tournament. So let's rewind to 2 days earlier first, because you cannot understand the weight of this loss without understanding what came before it. Eala had just done something that nobody outside her most devoted fans thought was realistic. She had beaten IGA Swiatek, the defending champion, a 6-time Grand Slam winner. On the same grass, Swiatek had barely lost a set on 12 months earlier, and she had done it in straight sets, becoming the first Filipina in the Open era to reach the second week of a major, the first player from her country to be seeded at any Grand Slam at all. And that win alone would have been the story of most players' careers, the kind of result you talk about for years, except for Eala it was just the ramp up, because 2 days later she had to walk back out and do it again against a completely different kind of opponent, and Jasmine Paolini is not the kind of player who lets a good story write itself. She's a former Wimbledon finalist, she reached that final back in 2024, she knows exactly what grass rewards and exactly how to make a young opponent uncomfortable on it, and she had her own reasons for wanting this one badly. 2026 had been a rough season for her, patchy form, fitness questions, no real deep run at a major since that French Open appearance the year before. So this was not some formality for the Italian either, this was personal redemption wrapped inside someone else's coming out party, and from the very first game you could feel that tension. Both players held serve early, nothing dramatic, just two competitors circling each other, and then Paolini drew first blood, breaking in the fourth game, riding that momentum into a 3-game surge that put her up 4-1, and for a few minutes it looked like maybe the story was going to be a simple one. Veteran shuts down the rookie, teaches her a lesson about second-week tennis, except Eala does not seem to know how to play that role. She trimmed the deficit, earned a break chance, and even though Paolini closed out the first set 6-4 on the back of some sharp first-serve tennis, you could already tell this was not going to be some routine dismissal. And then the second set is where things get interesting, because Eala came out swinging, pressuring Paolini's serve immediately, and even though she couldn't convert those early break points, she kept coming, and when she finally broke through to go up 2-1, Paolini answered right back, and the two of them settled into this rhythm of trading blows, hold, break, right up until Eala broke again to push ahead 4-3, and this is the part of the match where Paolini almost buried her, surging to love 40 on Eala's serve.
Yeah, it was a tough
points,
match.
one shaky game
Alex,
away from cruising to the
she's a
finish
really
line,
tough opponent.
and instead Eala did something that should
especially
honestly be
here on grass.
replayed
Her
in
game,
every junior academy in the
perfect here.
Philippines for. The next
So it
decade,
was tough,
she won 5
tough
straight
battle,
points,
and I'm happy
erased
that
all 3 break
that I make it
points,
through,
and helped to go up
but yeah,
5-3,
I think it was
then
a
served out
good
the
match.
set to force a decider. And if you have ever watched live sport, you know that specific kind of silence that happens right before a deciding set at a Grand Slam, the crowd leaning forward, nobody quite sure what they are about to see, and what they got was a third set that stayed locked at 2 all through 4 games before Paolini finally found the break she needed in the 8th game, going up 5-3, and even then Eala did not just fold. She won the next 2 points trying to claw back into it before a string of unforced errors finally closed the door, and when Paolini served out the match, 6-4, for 6, 6-3, 2 hours and 22 minutes on the clock, the story should have been simple, higher ranked, more experienced player gets the win she needed, and technically that is exactly what the record books say happened, except nobody in that stadium treated it like a routine result, because as Eala walked to the net to shake hands, the crowd rose, not the kind of polite ripple of applause, You give a player who competed hard and lost, but a genuine roar, the sound of thousands of people who understood they had just watched something that mattered more than who advanced to the quarterfinals, and Eala stood there for a moment, shaped her hands into a heart toward the stands, and the ovation just kept building. And here's a detail worth sitting with. Sitting in that crowd watching all of this unfold was Roger Federer, a man with 8 Wimbledon titles of his own, someone who has probably watched more tennis matches on that exact patch of grass than almost anyone alive. Also in attendance that day, Billie Jean King, 39 Grand Slam titles across her career, the founder of the WTA itself, 2 of the most significant figures in the history of this sport, watching a 21-year-old lose a 4th-round match and rise to their feet for her anyway. And if you're wondering why that matters so much, think about what those 2 people have actually witnessed over there. Careers, they have seen thousands of matches, they know exactly what separates a competent performance from something genuinely rare, and what they were applauding was not sympathy, it was recognition, the specific kind of recognition that comes from watching someone refuse to back down even when the match was slipping away from her. And afterward, in her press conference, Eala said something that tells you a lot about how she is actually built as a competitor. She talked about how there are so many positives to take from the week. She said she was proud of how she handled the pressure, that she kept her composure when she needed to, and then she said something that stuck with a lot of people watching. She said everyone has days where they don't play their best tennis, that's part of the job. She doesn't expect to be at her absolute best every single time she steps on court, and there is a kind of honesty in that statement that you don't often hear from athletes in the immediate aftermath of a loss like this. No excuses, no blaming the surface or the schedule or the crowd. Noise, just a clear-eyed acknowledgement that this is what competitive sport actually looks like. And Paolini, for what it's worth, was gracious in her own right afterward, calling the match a roller coaster, saying Eala's game is built perfectly for grass, acknowledging that this was a genuine battle and not some formality, and that respect from an opponent who just spent 2 hours trying to end your tournament tells you something too, because players at that level do not hand out compliments. They don't mean, especially not minutes after a physically and mentally exhausting 3-setter. So let's talk about what this loss actually means in the bigger picture, because the instinct with any dramatic exit is to frame it as an ending. The dream run is over, back to reality. Except that framing completely misses what actually happened here. Eala didn't just have a good week at Wimbledon. She rewrote what is possible for tennis in the Philippines. She became the first Filipina in the Open era to reach the 2nd week of a Grand Slam, the first player from her country to ever be seeded at a major. She walked away with a career best result at the tournament that matters most in this sport's history, and she did it by beating a defending champion along the way, not by getting a favorable draw or catching someone on an off day, by dismantling Iga Swiatek in straight sets on the biggest court in tennis. And none of that gets erased by a 3-set loss to a former finalist who has been playing this exact stage of tournaments for years longer than Eala has been a professional. If anything, the manner of the loss adds to the story rather than subtracting from it, because losing badly, getting blown off the court, fading quietly, that tells you a player has hit her ceiling, but losing the way Eala lost, clawing back from a set down, saving break points with her back against the wall, forcing a decider against a player with more Grand Slam experience, that tells you the opposite. That tells you the ceiling is nowhere near where people thought it was, and there is something worth noting about the emotional arc of these 2 weeks too, because 2 days before this match, Eala had just delivered the single biggest win of her career, beating a 6-time major champion on center court, and then with barely 48 hours to recover physically and emotionally, she had to walk back out and do it all again against a different kind of threat entirely. That is an enormous emotional swing to manage in such a short window, going from the euphoria of the biggest win of your life straight into another must-win battle with almost no time to process what just happened. And she talked about that afterward too, about how letting emotions out after a big win is part of professionalism, about needing to refocus quickly because this wasn't the first time she'd had a massive win followed by another difficult match just days later, which tells you this wasn't some fluke of adrenaline carrying her through one great week. This is someone who has actually built the mental framework to handle exactly this kind of pressure, and that matters more for her long-term trajectory than any single result at any single tournament. Because Grand Slams are not won in one tournament, They are built match by match, year by year,